You're listening to the Around the Lens podcast, the home of high-quality, roundtable, visual journalism discussion about the news, topics, and gear related to our career field. Now, here's the host of our show, David J. Murphy.
Hello and welcome to Around the Lens, episode 216. I'm your host, David J. Murphy. Joining me this week, as always, are my co-hosts, Travis Keys and Evelyn Hochstein. Travis, how are you doing in New York City?
Yeah, well, as we know, crazy times, and so hopefully it's one of those episodes we look back and go, wow, remember then? Remember when we were all kind of quarantined? They were shutting restaurants and live events and sports were canceled, and this is going to be kind of a little piece of history here, kind of looking back on this. This is something like you see in movies. You don't never really kind of like, oh, this wouldn't happen in real life. This is like, you see this at the beginning of The Walking Dead, the apocalypse or something like that. It's just the crazy, you never expect in your life that they're going to go, you know what, everyone, we suggest you self-quarantine for 14 days. We're going to shut down all, sports and concerts and bars and restaurants. We're going to go to takeout only. It's kind of a bizarre thing. It's really kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah, and we got, obviously you in New York City and Evelyn, you're in D.C., so two major metropolitan areas. And Evelyn, we haven't seen you in a few weeks, so what you been up to and how's everything in D.C.?
I mean, living my best, mostly quarantined life. I attended CPAC, and then the Washington Post asked me to self-quarantine for a week after. It was a week after, so I couldn't take any assignments, but I'm done with that. And work it's just, life is just really shut down. Everybody's working from home. Our restaurants I think are going to close momentarily.
And us as photographers, it's hard to work from home. It's hard to shoot remotely. Not an easy thing to do.
Since my quarantine ended Saturday, I did my first assignment yesterday related to the virus. It was pretty cool. I went to a group house of like 420-somethings who are now all teleworking, and how are they kind of coping with working from home, preparing, and they were all really kind of sweet, young, concerned people who were like, I don't want to infect older people, and they were really staying in. They told me parties had been canceled and people weren't really going out, and so they were
social distancing.
They were really doing their social distancing. Oh, and the coolest thing was they had like this spare small room, and one guy in the house said, if one of us gets sick, I'll give up my bedroom, because it was like on the third floor and it had its own bathroom. So he could, they had a plan. They had a contingency plan if somebody got sick, and he would go move into this small bedroom and they'd isolate their housemates. So I thought, wow, they're way ahead of me. I mean, I haven't even bought extra toilet paper. So, I don't know.
It's like, toilet paper humor.
Right? Yeah. So, but it's the usual chaos at the supermarket. It's fine. People are adjusting, but it's crazy. Like Travis said, it's historic, and I think it's a bummer, like not being able to visit certain people, and it's tough. And work is definitely, I think freelancers are really going to suffer. Yeah. For example, like a couple of my colleagues, I work for foreign newspapers. They flew back to Europe, so it's going to slow down, I think, a lot.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And, that's the main thing, is like, it may not affect a lot of people health-wise, but, financial wise, and the ongoing hardship of this is going to be, felt for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot may not recover. I mean, a lot of people are working on shoestring budgets and paycheck to paycheck, and restaurants, that, have to be open to even pay the bills. You shut for 4 weeks, and, I can't imagine, some of these may not make it. It's a kind of a scary time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, how long can you go without work? And the thing is, as freelancers, you don't have that sort of corporate, I would say, cushion to kind of pay you while you're not working. You have to work or you don't get paid. You have no sick leave, right, as freelancers. So how are you both kind of getting through this time? I mean, Evelyn, obviously you still got jobs coming in your way. But, Travis, you said earlier that your calendar has been sort of wiped clean because of this, right?
The calendar's been completely wiped clean, and what I find kind of cool is in times like this, you see this kind of beauty in people, and it's now the Zoom world. Everybody's gone to Zoom meetings and Zoom webinars and kind of doing stuff and reaching out and helping each other, virtually in this world. And you see, just look at Italy for how horrible the quarantine has been over and stuff like that, and you see these moments of beauty, like you see that clip where everybody's kind of singing out the windows and to each other. It's like you got to look for these moments of beauty and how people are helping each other. So for me, I've been I've been going at least live twice a week now. So on Thursdays I do something called Open Talk, and we bring on a guest and we kind of just start talking about how it's affected the photo industry and what we can do to in terms of keep ourselves stress-free and deal with the mental aspect and the mental stress and the mental health aspects of this, how we can be creative and really use this time to do all the things like, I never have time to do this, to really kind of tighten up your portfolio or really kind of work on things that once it does die off, that you can launch back into things even better than before. We work on branding and stuff like that. And on Sundays, I do something called group therapy now, where people can just come on and we kind of talk about the absurdity of the last week's events, do it with a little humor, but also have a vent period. Forgive us, our daily vent, I call it. And people can really kind of just vent on issues. And for me, it was the toilet paper hoarding and that stuff like that. So I went off on that for a little while. But I think we have this chance now to really kind of just check in on each other and support each other. So that's what I'm really focusing on at the moment.
Yeah, that's great. And if Mike Sharkey James is still listening, he was commenting earlier on the episode. So if Mike, if you're still out there, he is doing his doctor recommended self-quarantine. So stay safe out there, Mike. I think he's in Idaho or Iowa or someplace cold. So stay warm, stay inside.
Use that wonderful new studio that you've built, and I hope to see some live stuff from you and the best of your health of you and your wife.
Still waiting to see that YouTube show there, Mike. Mike Sharkey James, come on, let's see that.
I've seen some screeners. I've seen some sneak peeks.
Okay, all right, cool. Well, hopefully we can get some full peaks soon. So at least a trailer, Yeah, I mean, considering he's self-quarantined, he's got nothing but time on his hands. Be inside, right? So maybe you can get that knocked out. I know I actually started an essay series for Around the Lens. I recorded it yesterday. I haven't had a chance to really dig into it too deeply to edit it, but essentially it's my thoughts on 8K as we sort of move forward with it in the world of visual journalism. So I'll be publishing that on our Patreon page here in the next few days. So if you want to see that, go check it out over there first before it goes to the regular audience. But again, it's just me talking to the camera for a few minutes and kind of giving my thoughts on something. You see all these like essay series on like film and every frame of painting and all this kind of stuff on different subjects. So I figured, let me see if I can do my own essay series on visual journalism. So go check that out. And maybe we'll have guest essayists from Travis and Evelyn and Zach and Ron and whatnot can each do an essay. So if there's something you all want to talk about for a few minutes to the camera, let me know and I'll make sure to schedule you in. So considering you're locked in and you've got plenty of free time, maybe that's something you want to do. But
this is true.
Anyways, nothing like taking your mind off of the COVID-19 epidemic, and I think this show helps to do that. And I want to say, we were ahead of the game with regard to working from home because this show is all done remotely, always has been done remotely.
Yeah,
we don't have to get together in a studio.
Safe social distance. Been practicing for a long time now.
That's right. I'm socially distant in South Korea. You're in New York. Evelyn's in D.C. We couldn't get more distant from one another. We need somebody in Italy. China.
I know. I think it's pretty cool that we have someone in Korea, New York, and even though Washington doesn't have that many cases, I'm in the political center.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like
I'm in a hot zone.
You're in the hot zone, and
I'm in a hot zone.
So
one of the three in the United States.
Yeah. Zach's also in DC. So I mean, he's covering covering the whole White House press corps thing. So really, you and him should get together, honestly, and you can stay 2 meters away from each other, 6
feet apart, and discuss.
And just talk to each other about things. Right. How are things going?
He's probably getting his temperature taken every day at the White House and whatnot. That's what they're doing at briefings. They're checking journalists. Yeah, I mean it's smart. I mean,
I know one was pulled out of the pool the other day, running a high temperature.
Oh wow!
Yeah, like for instance, every time I go on base, they ask questions about where I've been and if I've been to any hotspots, and they take temperature, and so they're doing what they can to kind of what we call is create a bubble around the base, and so far it's been working. There's only been 9 cases associated with USFK and only 1 service member, and he is pretty shortly here probably going to get released back into the regular population after recovering from the COVID-19 epidemic. So basically all it takes is about a week of no symptoms, and also 2 checks 24 hours apart that are both negative. And if you have, then you can kind of go back to your resume your normal life, so to speak. So
the one thing I've learned throughout all this, and especially with all the information that we're getting, and I didn't quite realize before, is how much I actually touch my face.
I just did it. I just have my hand resting on
consciously. My face. I had no idea how much. I'm like, oh, I have an itch on my nose now. Don't touch your face.
Yeah.
Constantly,
yeah. I haven't stopped touching my face. Like, I haven't slowed. I try. I'm more cognizant of it, but I still touch. I'm always touching my face.
That's another broadcast.
I'm more cognizant, so now I'm constantly like, oh no, I just touched my face. Oh no, I just touched my face.
When it really gets you, it's like, for me, it's like when I go and pump gas or something like that, and you have to enter that 4 digits of your, the 5 digits of your zip code into on the keypad, and then touch select the gas, and then, hold the thing to put in your thing. That's when you're really going like, oh my God, it's crawling up my hand. Oh my God. Like, I don't want to get back in my car. It's like, I have to get to the hand sanitizer before I touch my steering wheel. It's like, it's like these thoughts are now creep into your head, and like, on everyday things you did for so many years without even giving a second thought to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. And also washing hands. I'm much more cognizant of how long I wash my hands.
Right.
This whole idea of washing hands for 20 seconds is a completely new concept for me. I honestly, I've never been told how long to wash my hands ever in my life. Most of my hand washing experiences are about 5 seconds, if that. So I have to change my the way I wash my hands. Apparently, my wife has known this all along. Like, she's always known you should wash your hands for 20 seconds. I mean, did you guys know this before this, or were you ever, how long did you wash your hands?
I thought 5 seconds was like 20 seconds. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't realize how long 20 seconds actually was, which is a very long time when you're.
I was still coming to grips with 2 minutes on brushing your teeth. Okay.
Yeah, I know exactly. I definitely don't brush my teeth for 2 minutes. Now I have one of those toothbrushes that reminds me.
Yeah, exactly. Beeps every 30 seconds and lets you know.
Yeah. So the hand thing.
They're gonna have to change that in all the automatic things in the bathroom, because every time you have to hit it, the auto sensors is like 5 seconds. It's not even 5 seconds. It's like 3 seconds of water. So now if you hitting these public things for over and over and over for 2 minutes, I'm like, that's gonna get.
That was so insane. I know, I was in a public bathroom. I'm like, how could I possibly wash my hands? Nobody's doing this for 20 seconds because constantly it was. Yes, that's definitely got to change. Yeah.
And there'll be a water shortage just from washing our hands for 20 seconds. It's like it's all spiraling down.
Well, I watched a good video. Actually, Alton Brown showed a great technique for washing your hands. And it's not about having water running over your hands for 20 seconds. It's about soaping up and scrubbing your hands with soap for 20 seconds. And then you just rinse off your hands for, 5 seconds or however long it takes to rinse off the water. Point. You don't need to run your hands under water for 20 seconds. And that's what I think people are confused about. Because I was confused about that too. Because I'd be like, soap on the hands, rub the hands for a few seconds, and have the water run over my hands. But that's not doing you any good. You have to get the soap and scrub your hands for 20 seconds with the soapy. That's what's going to grab the disease if it's on your hands and actually run it down the drain. So.
Yeah, getting under the nails and all that. Yeah.
Go check it out. Alton Brown. He washes his hands for like 45 seconds.
He runs a tight ship on his hand washing. I'll tell you.
Considering he's touching food and everything like that, makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah, which is really important.
Indeed. All right. Well, we'll talk probably more about COVID as we go throughout the show, but let's start with our topics this week. Our first topic deals with plagiarism and the World Press Photo Competition. So this is between 2 photographers. The first photographer published their work in, it looks like, 2016, 2014, 2017, over the course of a few years. Her name is Salmaz Daryani. And basically what she claims is that another photographer by the name of Maximilian Mann, who published his work in 2018, 2019, so after hers, obviously, basically took very similar shots of what she took, and what she claims is plagiarism. So if you look at the work, and I'm scrolling through it right now, got the link in the show notes, but if you look at it, it's very similar in terms of the concepts, so similar locations, similar style shots. So you've got, photograph here of a woman with a selfie stick, and then you got another photograph here of a couple with a selfie stick. Inside of, I don't know, some sort of smokehouse room where people can smoke cigarettes. Here on a farm, picking what looks like, oranges or whatnot. So again, it's what she claims is like, hey, this guy went to the same places, shot the same locations, shot the basic same general subjects, and is passing off his work as sort of something that is authentic and true. And I'm saying this is plagiarism. So what do y'all think about this? Is this, because I think we think of plagiarism as sort of, copying, but like it's very clear cut in the, world of perhaps writing, right? Because you can just copy paste what someone is writing. But here, this is an interesting sort of concept with regard to, plagiarism, because it's, they're creating their own individual work. They're going to the same places and shooting similar shots. They're not taking photographs of their shots, they're taking their own shots, but again, they're following the same sort of, concept and story. So what do you all think about this? Do you think this is plagiarism, or is she sort of getting a little bit up in arms about it?
Yeah, and certainly when you're talking about something that's a pattern, and if it was one photo, you might be like, all right, maybe it's just subconsciously or a tribute. But when you're looking at multiple photos and stuff like that, it's this is not the first time it's happened, and certainly like that. And in this day and age of being able to ever the digital sleuths finding stuff much easier, I'm surprised that anyone would do it to begin with, because it's so easy to catch nowadays. But they seem to do it, and I don't think they're going to get caught. And it's not cool. I'll put it that way.
I don't know
cool.
if I thought it was specifically plagiarism. I mean, I think we take inspiration from other photographers all the time, and I think maybe the second photographer was a little bit unoriginal. And yes, we can't directly copy something. So plagiarism, I mean, really saying, okay, I'm going to go to this orchard, or I'm going to go to do a selfie stick photo. But I mean, they're not exactly the same. They're not in the same location. Is, going to an orchard part of the story? Is taking selfies at the lake part of the story? It didn't scream plagiarism as much as sort of unoriginality to me. I don't know what it's like shooting in this part of the world either, and how much freedom and access you have in terms of location. But my first instinct wasn't that this photographer was plagiarizing the other photographer.
Yeah, but you have
and how many were similar? I only saw 4. Were there more similar?
I think 4 that are almost identical in terms of the same ship in orchard.
Yeah.
When you show a pattern, and if it was one in a series that was submitted, all right, maybe. But you look, there are 4 ones that are not only like composed very similarly, but even have some of the same elements and stuff like that, and in the composition.
Lake, and it's drying up, and that's the only angle you can get of the cruise ship showing that there's, or whatever, the ship, sorry, there's no water there. How do you tell that story in a different way? Don't we all sort of photograph similar, okay, I'm going to do this story in New York, I'm going to go to Times Square. I mean, yes, your job to make it interesting is to do it differently.
These are years apart. So when you have years apart on these series, and they happen to be the same very the elements of 2 orchard pictures, 2 ship pictures, 2 pictures in the same people in the same room with the same stove. I mean, this is not
that's the same room. That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
the absolutely.
Ship was more like
there's way too much. There's way too much similar here. It is. I think pretty blatant and obvious that this is a copy.
I'd love to see the full bodies of work, which I was just trying to pull up, and I haven't been able to see them. Have you, Dave? Have you?
They're far more than the ones that are featured in the link that I sent you. If you actually click, there's a link to it, and I'll add this additional link where they show more of the photos in the series that are sort of from the same general area, or covering or showcasing the same type of subject. So, you have different photographs of people burning fields. And again, if you look at the photos side by side, they're not very similar, like at all. In many of these, again, they're shot at different sort of focal lengths, different vantage points, different angles. So the pictures are different enough to where, they're not the same type of photo. It's just similar in terms of construction of the story, similar in terms of examples of how to feature that. it's like, let's say somebody said, I'm going to do a photo story on, like you said, Times Square, right? So, and you created a body of work that showed life at Times Square, and then somebody saw that and recreated those same shots. You think of what are kind of iconic shots of Times Square, like the naked cowboy, or, the folks who are dressing in the costumes or whatever. So it's like somebody saw that and made similar shots. I would say at worst, he's unoriginal, the guy who's, making his own work. Like, maybe this is just a very popular topic, right? Like, maybe just everybody loves covering this story subject, right? And it's just, maybe within covering this story, there are only certain types of images you can get that represent the story. But I would have to say, even if I was taking inspiration from another photographer who covered this, I would intentionally try to at least cover the photographs or take photographs that looked visually different than what, people I know. Because he acknowledges being aware of the work of this other photographer as well as other photographers, I guess, who have covered this subject. So I would, and in certain instances, he has covered things from different angles, but it's just like, I don't know. I mean,
well, I have to. I wholeheartedly disagree on this one in terms of, if you look at it, what we're saying here is it's, he took a paragraph. He may not have stolen the whole book. He took a paragraph and changed the ands to buts, and just did slight alterations. There's too much similar here. There's too much of the same. There's too much. If he says he's even acknowledging he's aware of the other work, and you're putting this much that's so similar and so we're not talking about they're not that dissimilar. They really are very similar in some of these photographs.
Interesting why you would look at let's say you're researching this and you want to do it and you're looking at the body of work, which leads back to the unoriginality, saying like, okay, I want daily life. People are playing soccer, whatever they're doing. Wouldn't you try to find another example of people doing, a way of illustrating? I mean,
and we certainly know when you put enough photographers in a room, they're all going to come out with different shots. Some of them may have similar stuff, but if I see 15 people in the same shot, I'm trying to get something different.
Right. Now, we do have, like, back to the iconic imagery. Like, let's say you want to get a shot of, a soldier coming home and kissing his bride. Okay, we repeat that shot over and over, in modern day. And I think we'd all like to capture, like, the famous Pulitzer Prize winning one in, like, the same, 50 years later, right? So I wouldn't call that plagiarism. I would call that more inspiration. So that's what's an interesting debate. Like, Travis, you feel very strongly that this is direct copying, and I'm on the fence. I mean, I think it's sort of like, it's been done. Why didn't you try to show us something new and different? It's unoriginal and uninspired, perhaps.
I think if it was one or two pictures, then you could be like, all right, maybe. But we're seeing multiple images here that are some are almost identical, and some are, just even almost compositionally very similar. So I mean, that's when you're compiling multiple images into a piece of work that are identical or similar to another piece of work, then there has to be an acknowledgement to the past work or something like that, a footnote. Even if we're quoting in our own essays or something like that, we put footnotes in acknowledging the other work and stuff like that. And I think this is way too similar not to acknowledge the other work.
And I think too, if you're going to be inspired by somebody so much, you then have to make it your own, right? I mean, it's also. I mean, I think take it to another.
What I should have done is I actually know the author of this article as a friend, and I should have had him on.
Yeah, it would be great.
Yeah. What happened with World Press? Do we not know? Is this person being?
We'll have to do a follow up on this and see what's going on with the outcome of this.
Yeah, I don't know if there's been any sort of punishment levied against the photographer who was inspired, copied, whatever, Maximilian Mann. But it is it's a pretty damning series of photos that showcase again. Now, again, if you think about a subject, right? Like certain subjects, like you said, Evelyn, have certain shots associated with them. Troops are turning home. But I would say there's ways to capture things at different angles, like this tee shot, right? I mean, you could have captured this at a different angle or maybe a different room. I don't know this subject matter in terms of perhaps there's only certain things you can cover in this series, like to showcase what's going on. You know, maybe people don't play anything other than soccer on these fields. Do you not cover soccer? You know, if you're coming and covering this story, you know, with no experience of what has been done before, you're kind of covering what's happening. And if only certain things happen at this location, you know, what do you do if, you know, is suddenly now all of that off the table, so to speak?
But maybe it's soccer. Maybe it's you get down, you have to change the angle completely. I mean, Travis, you feel more strongly about
the soccer
this.
shot, like the
so
two shots are
it is
completely different.
soccer.
You know, and I actually like the one. I like the one by Maximilian better.
But you know, if you look at the, you know, yeah, Maximilian Man is very similar. You know, those two shots. The problem is when you're showing multiple photos in a photo essay, and you can show these many similarities in not only location but in subject matter and the way they're shot. It's hard to argue that this person wasn't copying something. You know, it's really hard to argue that.
Yeah, this is a very fine line. I think some of it that you look at, like, that's pure documentary. Like, you want to show the environmental impact. You're going to take a shot where a boat may dock, and maybe that's the only port, and it's literally like, this is what the water situation looks like. So I take less offense to that, but certainly the tee shot, the burning, they're all a little bit different, but a little bit similar. You know, the selfie, I guess, I don't know. It's really, this is a very tricky, it's not as clear cut to me. I think
like if you took a photo group to this, or like a you know, a group of students or whatnot, to say, hey, go cover this subject, you know, you'd probably get a lot of the students covering the same basic stuff from different angles and whatnot, you know.
It just feels like he took this other work and used it as a blueprint for his own, and he didn't stray from it that far.
Well, that's another point. He's not doing anything original or adding to the story. So why would you go and like recreate the same story? Wouldn't when you want to bring something new or different 3 years later, or tell it or advance it in some way? So it's almost like, why would this get published? Or why, if people know that this other story exists, which probably some editors wouldn't necessarily know. You bring it to your paper or your magazine and say, hey, I've done this, and they're not necessarily aware of a story done 3 years earlier.
There's so much imagery created all the time that, you know, no one can be apprised of every single type of image shot all the time everywhere. So, you know, perhaps the judges weren't.
But I think that's what it's probably the shame of it all, is that if he's not added anything, it leads back to the unoriginal question and possibly the plagiarism.
You're telling the same story with the same basic shots. What are you adding to the story? What's, you know, new to the story? If you knew about this, which, let's see here, he writes, you know, he never intentionally, I thoroughly researched my documentary project on Lake Urmia. During my research, I also encountered the work of Salmaz Daryani, that's the woman making the claim of plagiarism, along with other photographic works by a bunch of names here I'm not going to read off. So this is obviously a subject matter that's been heavily covered, you know, not just by this one. I'd be curious to know if these other photographers listed here have similar images as well. I acknowledge that the selection I submitted to WorldPress, there are similarities that can't be dismissed. I reject the accusation of plagiarism. I've never intentionally visited the same places as she did or photographed similar moments, and I find it regrettable that huge differences between our works are ignored. When you take a closer look at both works in their entirety, the differences become clear. And like you're saying, it may be different, but what is it adding on top of the story? It's telling the same story, basically, just at a slightly different angle, you know? So what would you do if you were the world press and you were looking at this case? Would you reject his work? Travis, I'm sure you would.
Yeah, I think there's too many similarities in it, and it doesn't feel like original piece. When if he had removed some of this and did a better edit, it's too strikingly similar to the other work in too many ways.
Evelyn, would you reject his work, or would you allow him to stay in?
I don't know if I would reject it in terms of saying, okay, for sure you're being kicked out because you plagiarized, but perhaps it might not be stand out or might not be a winning essay if I felt like it was unoriginal, it had been covered, and it wasn't new, it wasn't their idea. I'm still haven't made up my mind 100% on the plagiarism side. But in that regard, I wouldn't necessarily think it's a winning photo essay.
Right.
Now that I'm aware of other photographers' work, it would be like, I'm going to go, to Rwanda and take the same photos that James Nachtwey took. Why would I win? Even if it's not plagiarism, why would I win a prize for that?
Yeah, I would definitely look at their entry in the history and context of history. At the core level, what they produced, I think, should be judged on its own merits in terms of the work they shot. But again, looking at that sort of context of history, I would say like, okay, good, you got some good shots. What is it doing in terms of telling this overall story? You're not adding anything to the collective story. This has been done before. I don't know. I'd have a hard time, as opposed to someone who creates something completely original or covers a story or topic within the world that hasn't been covered before. I would definitely give them much more weight and credence in terms of reviewing and judging their imagery. Not related to this, but when I was in New York City working as a street photographer, covering celebrities, there was a photographer who got a great shot of Lindsay Lohan on the street, just kind of walking. She was actually playing up for the camera. She did this she had some shopping bags in her hand, and she did a wink to the camera. So it was a completely natural moment, right? And this photograph shot by a paparazzi in the city was actually used as, I think, a cover for a DVD of a movie that she was in. And before they paid him for the rights to use his image, they tried to recreate the photograph. They tried to hire a photographer and do everything and recreate it. And essentially they couldn't get the same sort of moment. And so they had to pay for the photograph that he produced. So just a little side story about copying imagery I thought was neat. But you see, actually, we haven't covered this before, or maybe we did cover this, I don't know, a few years ago, where you had people copying exact same moment and composition of photographs for, I think, Instagram. You'd find somebody who was maybe lower in sort of the Instagram count doing neat work, and higher folks within the Instagram chain would shoot their exact same style photograph, plagiarizing their concept, so to speak. And it's a nasty habit to do. So create your own work, people. Be original. All right, well, let's move on to our next topic this evening. We're talking about happy accidents. So I saw this photograph of Harry and Meghan as they were, lit by a stranger's flash. So they were going to the, this sort of event, and the photographer, Samir Hussein, got this nice, very cinematic, I would say, image of them kind of coming through, walking in the rain, and he was given sort of this ray of luck by a flash that was kind of lit up, behind the couple. And so when I saw this story, it made me think about the times that I've had sort of, by pure luck, maybe another person's flash has actually helped light up and, make my shot that much better. And it has happened before, especially when I've been in a group of photographers where someone else's flash has essentially gone off and I got a good frame because of that. And I thought I'd throw it over to you all, see if that's ever happened in sort of your line of work, especially Evelyn, you're constantly around other photographers shooting in the DC area. Maybe there's been probably, has that ever happened to you? Have there opportunities or instances where another photographer or you've gotten just some stroke of luck come out from your work?
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny because I barely ever use a flash. It's like once in a blue moon. So sometimes when I probably needed a flash and other people are shooting flash, it's helped me get one frame that's really crisp and well lit.
It's very hard to time that.
So I'm grateful for that. So I would say my happy accidents have been probably really lucky for me. It's so rare, but it's definitely happened. I've been on red carpets or things, or your batteries die or whatever. You've got a series of frames, and then all of a sudden you have one, and it's somebody else's flash. It's definitely worked. I think I have one example that I can remember, like covering fireworks at the millennium. I mean, this is a million years ago, the millennium. And I think I was in Bethlehem, and there was like a pigeon release or something. Right, it's 20 years. Yeah, it was a pigeon release, and I don't even want to say how long ago it was. A pigeon release, and I know that the other photographers' flashes like lit up all the pigeons, and I did get a really good shot. I was stringing Reuters at the time, and it's like one of those like iconic photos from the millennium around the world. So yes, it has happened to me, but that was a while ago. Yeah, it's either saved my butt or just improved my photo.
Travis, I know you're not usually around like lots of photographers, but have you ever had any like just neat things happen when you're shooting?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've certainly been in plenty of big events, and certainly in wedding time stuff that shooting some of that stuff that I've had happy accidents like that, and it's great. When I try to rack my brain, on it, I'm like, oh, I don't remember, but I certainly know when I've been culling through photos. I'm like, oh, look at that! Someone's flash went off there, and look what it did, and stuff like that. And so there's definitely, and it's not only flashes that do it. There's also some other great moments, that you get just happy accidents shooting in general. Someone in the background that you didn't notice, or something that catching something at a perfect time that you didn't realize in the foreground or background that was like, oh wait, I didn't even know that was happening when I took the picture.
Right, something.
I think this photographer, though, it was even more than an accident, because he was like, it was an accident that it happened at the right time, but he was aware of the flash, and he was able to get the umbrella to block the other person's flash so that it backlit it. So it was a combination, I think, of skill and luck.
I think it was all luck.
Yeah. Well, I just read what his comments were saying. Like,
I'm teasing.
Yeah. Because, I mean, that's amazing luck. And it is luck, because you can't really time someone else's flash, obviously.
Yeah, you're not.
Yeah, it'd be like.
It did, and you're a shutter,
sure it was
obviously.
like, hey, buddy, on 3. 1, 2. No, that's. But
that's where your skill set and paying attention and really like being aware of every light source, you set yourself up, and then hopefully it works. And I think that comes with experience.
Spray and spray. And set that thing on the highest possible shutter constant shot you got. As many frames per second as you can will out of your camera.
Right.
And just hope that one of the frames is actually a winner. And here, you got a winner. I remember when I was shooting in Honduras, one of my favorite photos of all time was kind of a happy accident, because I really didn't know I got it until I went back and actually looked at my set on my computer. And that was just basically where, I was shooting this scene that had a lot of falling water in it. And it just created this wonderful image where one particular drop of water splashed on the subject's nose, creating a little like spark, if you will, of water that was backlit by a light source that I was, like a big floodlight. And so in that instance, I controlled the scene in the sense that I controlled the framing and where the light was and whatnot. But the way the water fell, it was just, a happy accident that happened in that particular sequence and created that particular image. So, when you're shooting with water and shooting with uncontrolled and elements, it does lead to some very magical moments sometimes.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, cool. Well, good luck. Congratulations to this guy for getting a sweet shot. All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to our last topic this week. Are you a commodity? So this was something I thought was pretty interesting, because we talk a lot about the nature of so many photographers that they're essentially driving down the price of a photographer, right? You have somebody who goes to the store and picks up a camera and calls himself a photographer, and now they're lowering the prices for everybody else. But this photographer, Heather Lanthian, probably mispronouncing that, of Flourish Academy, kind of has her sort of thoughts on what that does and why we shouldn't go down that route. Essentially saying that, you should be able to stand on your own, and your body of work should be able to represent yourself to the point where you're not having to necessarily lower yourself or lower your price to compete with others, so to speak, because once you're doing that, you sort of become a commodity. You're no longer just being hired based on your skills, you're being hired based on your price. And therefore, you're just like every other photographer out there. And, that's kind of an interesting way to look at it because, again, for the most part, my mindset is there's too many people out there and the market is saturated, so, no one can really make any money out of it. But, it brings up an interesting point about, no, if you have a good style, if you present yourself well, then you can demand a price that is a living wage, so to speak. And then it made me think of you, Travis, because you've got your own style and you've been hired to do work because of your style. So what do you think about what Lanthanan is saying here? Obviously, do you agree or do you disagree?
It's the ideal. I mean, obviously, you want to get to that point, but getting to that point and creating your own style, that's hard work. And to get there, you have to take those jobs and develop. So it's sort of like putting the horse, the horse before the cart. It's really difficult to get to that point, and to ask someone to immediately be at that point instead of the other point is just not going to happen. It's very tough. You don't want to devalue photography, but also you have to make it, if it's your only business, you have to take jobs and stuff like that. So it's a difficult thing that she's asking, and it's a hard one to kind of contemplate. And it took me a long time before I kind of lived what she's saying, because, people weren't hiring me because I didn't quite have that voice. I didn't have it. I had to develop it over time. And now that I have it, I can do that. But I wasn't able to do that before. You didn't
come out of the sort of gate with the style, and even if you did, you didn't necessarily were a known commodity that could produce work consistently within that style to prove yourself and prove the price that you obviously are worth now.
Yeah, you have to build that up over time. People aren't going to suddenly, you don't become a brand commodity without lots of people using you.
So would you say that when you were starting out, you were probably competing on price more so than capability?
Absolutely. I was trying to get experience. So I would, when I very first started, I was taking, multiple jobs a day, at $100, here and there, and just kind of, and then once I started, kind of really kind of developing my style and what I do and a name for myself, I was able to kind of increase my rates and then turn down jobs and it was funny because at first I felt like, oh my God, I'm not working at all, because I was so used to working 3 or 4 jobs a day that when I was only working 2 or 3 a week, I was actually making more money now, but working a lot less. So I always felt like, oh my God, I'm not doing something right. So I'd go out and try and work more and more and more. So it's kind of a bizarre kind of thing in your head to deal with.
Yeah, I think there was a photographer I saw many years ago who spoke at a conference about working and essentially saying like, you should get to a point where you look at what you're charging people and you should be able to like multiply it by 5 and still be able to get people to hire you for your work, and that's sort of a mentality thing too, because you have to make yourself believe that you're worth that in order to essentially charge people for it. And once you get over that hump or over that wall and you realize people will actually pay you, what you're asking, it's kind of like, oh my gosh, I've actually established myself and my capabilities. Let me throw it to you, Evelyn, from the freelancing world in terms of like photojournalism and whatnot, news coverage, is it sort of something where you have to establish yourself in the photojournalism, in the freelance journalism community and show your work, so to speak, or can you kind of just jump right into it? Or is it just, because I know with freelancing photojournalism, I mean, you're getting like sort of a set rate, right? As to whether you've been in it for 1 year or been at 10 years, or do they pay you more based on your experience?
Not as far as I know. It's pretty frustrating. Yeah. So no, it's a pretty set rate for the newspapers and magazines around the area. But I would assume that those with more experience or editors, feel more confident in, they're going to get the calls. But once you're sort of in the mix, you're getting paid the same as everybody else is. But, I do think, you may have to go out and shoot on spec or just go to events, build up your portfolio, not necessarily have an assignment, to have work to show editors and work your butt off till you can get those assignments and get those calls and show them that, you can do what you need, what they need you to do.
Yeah, I'd say the biggest difference between your line of work and Travis is that yours is kind of like opportunity of the moment type thing, where it's like, it's less so you're the best photographer for the job, more so you're the photographer who's available right now in the area. We need to cover this assignment and you're available. So it's like versus Travis, where it's like, hey, we like your work and we want you to shoot this, portraits to session.
Yeah, and she brings up a very good point that certainly there's an industry standard for journalists and stuff like that. What a lot of these people will pay. Where in my world, it's sort of a very different thing. It's your talent and your name brand and stuff like that. You can charge a lot more and get away with certain things that the industry is just not going to pay as journalists and advertising and stuff like that. And so for me, it's the limit is only as far as what rich people will pay. So a lot of us get very scared shooting portraits and creating content for people because we think we're going to price ourselves out of the industry. It's like, oh my God, I've been charging $250 for portraits, and that guy's charging $500. If I did that, I'm going to lose all my clients. When actuality is, you may get the same amount of clients, but you're making more money, or you might it's a real fear factor of trying to increase your rate, and you don't want to go up too much and lose everybody. But it was a kind of thing is like the people I found at $100 were asking more than the people that were charging $500, and suddenly like I was able to do and have more creative freedom with the people that were paying me more and the ones that were paying me less and being demanding. So it was like, wait a minute, I am actually doing a lot better by raising my prices. I may work a little less, but I'm still making the same or not more. And so you really kind of have to weigh where you're at.
So there you go, Evelyn, just raise your prices.
Oh, yeah.
Like I said, she's not in the industry, she can do that.
No, I think for you and Evelyn.
To your point, it's
Right.
about being available there. That's part of it. But you sort of editors know you and
Right.
know your work, and you might be the preferred
Yeah.
freelancer, and so it's a combination.
Yeah, I mean, for
sure.
you in your world, it's about getting more work. So, it's kind of like, again, if you're relied upon and they know you get your stuff, then they're going to call on you more often, which means you're going to get more work, which means you're going to get, obviously paid more. Or, perhaps, like they'll send you on assignments that are higher profile, or perhaps, require a bit more time and effort. Like, for instance, you said you went down to CPAC, right? Or you went to Iowa, so these type of long distance remote assignments, I would assume they're choosing you for that because, you've demonstrated your ability to, capture and come back with results on a consistent basis, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. You definitely develop relationships with editors, and they trust you, and they know that you can handle what you need to do, and you can travel and get the job done.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Okay. But yeah, I would definitely say, if you're doing the sort of commercial photography, portrait work and stuff like that, non-photojournalism stuff, and you can set your rates, don't be afraid to, push the envelope with regard to how much you charge people. I remember one time I was doing, I was at a shoot, or I was at, doing work actually for a newspaper in Long Island, and I was asked to take photographs for this company that I guess was doing the event that I was photographing. So I was photographing the story for the newspaper, and then the people who were running the event needed photographs of the event. They hadn't hired a photographer, or their photographer dropped out. So I gave them my rate, which I thought was appropriate, and I was actually quite surprised they agreed to pay it, because I was like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money. But they were in a bind, right? They were like, okay, well, we have no other choice. You're a photographer here, you can shoot this. So but it was interesting just to kind of have that experience. So
yeah, it's also very important to know your costs. So I mean, if you're taking a gig and you have to drive there and then pay for parking, and you're only charging $100 an hour, and you're working working 1 hour, and suddenly it costs you $10 in
Right.
gas and $20 in parking. It's like suddenly you have to realize, wow, I'm not making as much. So you have to really kind of understand your cost to set your prices, so you're not losing money. So you sometimes, with the cost of inflation and all that kind of stuff, you have to raise your prices too. And it's not because you want to make more, it's because you need to make more.
and you need to factor in your editing time. I think a lot of people don't factor that in. They factor in the time they're going to shoot, and they don't think about, well, you're going to spend about that same amount of time editing your work, especially if you actually do, take time with your edit and whatnot, and color correct every frame that you're going to give to your customer and stuff, which you should be doing. So yeah, that's an important thing to keep in mind. All right, well, let's wrap up this week's show. We can talk a little bit more about COVID and kind of what we see is sort of coming up here in sort of the weeks ahead. Obviously, here in South Korea, we're sort of on the downward slope. We were getting to the point where, we're sort of at the tail end of the curve. If you think of the, flattening the curve, well, we had our spike in our curve, but now we're down at the tail end of the curve. So I would say in probably another week or so, we're going to be getting to a state of normalcy with regard to kind of maybe loosening some of the sort of restrictions that have been placed upon us with regard to mobility. But you all are getting right the start of it. When do you think that your lives will normalize? I guess, Travis, you're more impacted than Evelyn is, because Evelyn, you're covering the story as a news piece. We'll go to you, Evelyn. Have you, after your quarantine period now, and you're back to working and covering stories, do you see that like this will impact your ability to work, or do you think it'll kind of be business as usual because people want to see COVID stories, right?
I think it's going to impact my ability partly because I think the economy, we're going into a recession. So even the Washington Post is going to be losing advertising dollars or be worried about the future and tightening their belts. And I think they very well may be watching the freelance budget. And I think other people will as well. So I am expecting that my work is going to decline for a while. So I'm a little bit worried about that. And I've already had some of my newspaper clients, pack up and leave the U.S. because they, for whatever reason, needed to go back home to Europe, and I'm not sure when they'll be back. So I'm expecting a slowdown.
And how will you respond to that? Like, what's your sort of contingency plan? I think it's just, let my clients know I am available, that, I'm here, I'm happy to work, I'm happy to cover it. But, I don't have one really. I mean, I hope that this is short-lived and things go back to normal, but I think it's going to be a tough couple of months, or just a slower couple of months, because any corporate jobs I would get, I think, will be canceled anyway. That would usually be like, maybe I get asked to cover an event or a speech, a party. I mean, I've done this to a couple assignments last week, like one was at the State Department. Nobody's going to be holding these sorts of events that I might get side jobs for. So I don't have, unfortunately, if you have any good ideas, let me know, but I don't have a real contingency plan. It's like, just ride it out, I guess. Just kidding.
Okay.
Well, it's interesting because like we think about the market, we think about advertising. What are people going to advertise? Like, hey, come on down to Carnival Cruise Lines. Oh, wait, no, you can't do that. Come on down to Disney World. Oh, no. So it's like there's nothing to advertise.
Uber Eats is still shooting at the moment.
What's that?
Uber Eats is still shooting promo stuff at the moment.
You're delivery business.
And Zoom, I'm sure, is doing fine with doing some advertising right now.
Yeah.
I think it's most important right now to really assess where you're at in terms of career and financial sustainability. I think it's really important now as an artist or as a freelancer, and just anybody in general, to really kind of, now is the time to break out your credit card bills and look what you have as reoccurring monthly payments, to say, do I need this? What can I do? Do I really need HBO anymore at the moment? It's really important to kind of break down a 15, 30, 60-day plan. A lot of us are probably going to go into several months of no work and a downtime. So we really kind of need to proactively kind of contact creditors and understand where we're at financially, because some of us have put money aside for stuff like this and a lot of us have not. So it's really important to really gauge where you're at and get comfortable with a troubling future for several weeks, if not months.
I mean, you bring up a good point. Stock away a savings, so you can ride through these times. That's absolutely key if you're a freelancer. If you're living paycheck to paycheck or gig to gig in the freelance world, then you're at a very playing a very risky game for sure. But like you said, I mean, maybe you can focus on other things. Perhaps like for instance, Travis, you had that video series you did for Adobe. Perhaps there are things you can branch out, diversify, that aren't strictly photo specific. Like I see a lot of people doing Skillshare classes, like actually, creating content and making perhaps a side income that way. So, that might be an option.
A photographer friend of mine is actually doing like almost photography day camp sessions for kids, and she'll do these group sessions and small groups of kids, and they'll teach them photography and stuff like that, and she'll keep them entertained for like 3 or 4 hours and give them activities and that kind of stuff, which I think is a brilliant idea because parents need content for their kids and stuff to do, and this is not only kind of fun but also educational. So there's lots of different stuff we can do to kind of reach out and do stuff while we have our downtimes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the most important thing is this is temporary. It will get back to normal at some point until next year when, the next epidemic or pandemic sprouts about. But, again, for this period of time, it's hopefully the corporate toilet paper clients start calling, be like, hey, we're doing gangbusters this year. We need some corporate headshots in front of our toilet paper rolls. Can you get over? Or Purell calls. I mean, for the big, the big party they're going to host from all the Purell they're selling. From that one guy in Tennessee who bought 17,000 bottles of Purell. Did you see that? That was ridiculous. I'm glad that guy.
Yep, and he's had to give it away. He's given it away for free now, and he got shut down. And it's people taking advantage of situations. It's disgusting.
Karma will get you. But all right. Well, you two stay safe out there. Stay healthy. Social distance yourself and make sure to disinfect. 20 seconds on the hand washing. Don't forget. Count it out. I remember when my wife told me you got to wash your hands for 20 seconds. I was like, what? That's an eternity. I counted it out. It was like,
you're crazy.
I could have washed my hands 5 times in this length of time. But it's for the best. It'll keep you healthy and safe. But all right. Anything you guys want to throw out there before we sign off, Evelyn?
Nope. Just hang in there, be safe, wash your hands, same message. Elbow bump.
That's right.
Yeah.
Bernie.
I'm not even touching elbows. No, I'm doing Wakanda forever. Just meet people. Yep.
I saw a GIF from the movie Demolition Man. The sort of Air 5. You guys know what I'm talking about?
That's GIF.
GIF, not GIF. Oh, did they do that? Oh, that's cool.
What does it say?
Oh, I didn't even know that. Nice.
Yeah.
Getting good. Playing into the trend.
That's fun.
Yeah,
I can't read that.
It says, if you've ever called GIF a GIF, we forgive you.
I say go with the Air 5. That way you don't even have to get close to the person. You just kind of Anyways. All right. Well, you two stay safe, stay healthy, and we will hopefully see you here on the show next week, as we always do.
Yeah, guys, it's more important than ever to stay connected. So please join us next Monday as we talk about the last week's events and what's new and upcoming, because it's really important.
So if you want to follow anything we're doing, go to AroundTheLens.com, find all our social media, links to Patreon, all that fun stuff, and continue the conversation online. We want to know what you think about what we talked about tonight. All right, for Evelyn Hochstein and Travis Keys, I am David J. Murphy. This has been Around the Lens, episode 216, and we are out.
Thanks for listening to Around the Lens. We hope you enjoyed the show. To continue the conversation, head on over to one of our social media outlets such as Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or Twitter. To support the show financially, consider donating to us via Patreon. For show notes from this week's episode and links to everything else we talked about, just go to our website, AroundTheLens.com. Finally, if you or someone you know might be a good guest for the show, get in touch with us via email at info@AroundTheLens.com.